All right, my name is Rich Schmidt. We're here with Nick Konen. It's December 15th, 2025. We're at the Nicholson Library at Linfield University in McMinnville. And Nick, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And the first question is, why wine?
Why wine? Good way to start. Really kind of just stumbled into wine when I first was figuring things out, and it's quickly became something that's been a huge part of my life. And I think that I've sort of stayed in wine and continue to enjoy wine is because it is such a great expression of a time and place, like, you know, everybody says, but I love Oregon. And I think when I first started working in wine, it really showed me that wine is an expression of Oregon, especially the stuff we work with here, and that was incredibly exciting. My first sort of exposure to wine was when I was here at Linfield. I had a friend of mine who was working in a tasting room, and I would occasionally go help him out at events, things like that. And, you know, it was kind of cool, but at the end of the day, it was a part-time job, and it was, yeah, whatever. And then I think it must have been my junior or senior year. It was before Linfield had its wine program, but they had a few pilot courses of, you know, introduction to wine, that sort of thing, and needed an elective. I said, hey, why not? I guess I'll give this a go, see what it's all about. And so that was sort of my first introduction. I thought it was really cool, really exciting. It was, I think at that point there was only like 4 or 5 of these oral history interviews published, but we had to do an assignment where we would, you know, watch some of these with, you know, Dick Erath and stuff like that, and then, you know, analyze them and talk about their importance. And so that was really a really cool exposure. And then from there, between needing a job and trying to figure things out, got a part-time job at a tasting room while I was here at Linfield, and that really opened up my eyes to the industry more, got me meeting more people, showed me just how complex and fun and exciting wine is and can be. So yeah, that was kind of my introduction to things, and first showed me that, you know, hey, this wine thing is pretty cool, and it is more complex than I had ever really enjoyed. And it's history, I mean, across the world, but here in Oregon, you know, that was my worldview at the time, is really cool, and it is a really cool part of our state and our location. So, yeah.
So let's talk about life before wine a little bit. Tell us about where you're born and raised and how you ended up at Linfield.
Yeah, so born and raised in Beaverton, Oregon. Grew up there, and then Linfield kind of just really wanted a small school. And I did admittedly want to be farther from home when I was choosing my college, but ended up at Linfield through just a series of events, and really happy about it. Gave me a ton of opportunity of things I wouldn't have had at other schools. Played tennis while I was here. The ability to study abroad, which had a huge impact on me. And I think, you know, we can talk more, but eventually led to more interest in wine. But yeah, I was extremely, extremely happy with my Linfield education. Yeah.
What did you major in here?
Majored in business and sports management. And like I said, it was pre-wine studies program, but I was lucky enough to take some of those pilot courses, which was nice. But yeah, the business degree as well is something that's helped out a ton. But yeah, after graduating, I had no real intention into going into wine. Loved my tasting room job. Didn't really see what more I could be, you know, doing with that. I didn't want to work in a tasting room forever, but so I kind of thought that was the end of my wine journey, which was funny enough. Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me about some of your favorite memories from Linfield, favorite classes, favorite faculty, favorite events and activities.
Nice. That's tough. There were a lot of them. So when I was here, I tried to get very involved. Was on ASLC with some of my best friends. Had some great memories with that, planning events for the student body and things like that. I was also in a fraternity, which was a great experience. But yeah, like I said, played tennis here, which was a really, really fun experience. And then I think one of my best memories was studying abroad. And then that kind of, I had never been abroad before and went to Oslo, Norway, which was just an incredible experience. And after that experience, I kind of wanted to be more involved in the international studies or international programs. So I got a part-time job in the international programs office, working with Michelle and Marie Schmidt, which was just awesome. Started a program we called Nick's Trips, where I would rent one of the Linfield vans, or they would help me, and we'd take some of the international students here on trips around Oregon. So showing them the coast, going into Portland, and that was just a really, really great time. I loved everything I did with the international programs office. And yeah, that was definitely a highlight. Some of my favorite classes, I mean, the one that sticks in my mind the most is that introductory to wine class. And I think it just because it did open so many doors. And Jeff Peterson was the faculty at the time for that. And he's been a great resource, even post Linfield, of, helping, answering any wine-related questions, industry-related questions, and has done a lot of great things for the industry. So have enjoyed that. Yeah, but it was really loved the experience here at Linfield all around.
Tell me about your time in Oslo.
It was incredible. It was so at that time, I don't know if it's still a thing, but there was the Linfield curriculum. So we had to take a certain number of classes outside of our major. So me and a friend that I was there with took a early education course where we just went and toured different kindergartens in Oslo, Norway, and with a specification on they do like outdoor schools where basically these 5-year-olds, majority of their day, rain, snow, sunshine, are spent outside. And it was really cool learning about the benefits of that. And there was this class, that was a huge focus of the class, is studying the benefits of these outdoor schools, especially at such a young age for these kids. But while I was there, was lucky enough to do a lot of traveling, got to visit a lot of international students who had studied here at Linfield for a semester and were now back then. But and it was really fun because it was Oslo's an extremely expensive city, and being a college student with a lot of money, trying to figure out like how to have a good time and how to, get around and enjoy the city and enjoy things was just a blast. And it was one of the most beautiful places I have ever been. I am extremely biased that Oregon is one of the greatest places on earth, but Norway was a close second, I would say. Yeah.
You mentioned kind of a tasting room job while you were in school. It's kind of your first entry really into wine. Tell me about that job for you. What was intriguing about it for you? What was attractive to you as you were in that job?
Yeah, so I think initially I really love customer service-based jobs. I love connecting with people. I love chatting with people. And at that time, that tasting room job had that. And I quickly realized like people are in a good mood when they go wine tasting, and it's fun. And it was at a tasting room. It was Vista Hills up in Dundee, with just a beautiful view. It had a great club membership, so everyone always came in and had a great attitude, and it was just so fun to connect with some of these people. And even at that time, I acted like I knew a lot about wine. I did not. I followed the leads of my coworkers. I took the little knowledge I knew from the tasting note sheet that the winemaker would make up. And so it was really, really fun, just connecting with others, being in this beautiful tasting room. We had a great staff. And then a little bit later working there, they hired on actually a fellow Linfield alum, Tyler Bradley, who he had an immense wine knowledge. And he really kind of, I don't know if he did this intentionally, but took it upon himself to teach some of us younger tasting room staff, like actually the details about the wine and the importance of knowing what you're talking about. And that went a long way. And then that kind of took it from me just like, oh, I like, connecting with people and pouring them wine and stuff, to like, again, it was a light bulb moment of like, whoa, this is really interesting. And you could look out the tasting room and say, hey, this wine we're pouring is from that block. And like, that's why it has these tasting notes. And it was like the first time I kind of really put that together instead of just, the tasting sheet says this is going to be notes of dark fruit. Like, cool. It's like, oh, this is why. And so that was a really, really cool experience. And looking back on it, I really wish I knew more, appreciated that job more, because that's a really beautiful vineyard site and really, really good wines coming out of there. And it was pretty funny too, actually, and this will go back to, I guess, some of my favorite experiences at Linfield. Was at that time, I was a senior at Linfield, and I was living in a house. I think it was a classic, like 4-bedroom house with 8 guys living in there. And about half of us were working at tasting rooms, and really nice, good quality tasting rooms around the valley. And so it was pretty fun. On Friday nights, we'd all come home with our, the half bottles that didn't get poured in the tasting room. And we were drinking some really, really good wines. And I think at that time, we maybe didn't have the appreciation for them, or didn't even know the importance and significance of what we were drinking. But it was really fun to look back on and think about. I mean, I don't even think at that point we had wine glasses. We were drinking them out of pint glasses, but we were all kind of at that point in our wine journey that we would discuss them. And hey, what do you like about this one? And we had no idea how to talk about them. But it was really cool to sit around and all try and learn from each other as best as we could, even though we didn't have a great idea of what we were talking about. So that was definitely a fun memory from my time here at Linfield.
As you're learning about wine, what were you kind of mentioned that you kind of had light bulb moments of things that you're realizing the depth and the breadth of wine. Were there certain ways you like to learn about wine, or certain types of wine you enjoyed learning about? And I'm also curious, as you were selling wine, what did you find people were interested in learning from you?
Yeah, I think that that's a really good question. So I think early I would always, it was all Pinot everything, because that's what we had so much access to. Like I said, through Linfield classes and through tasting room jobs, it was access to Pinot. And I thought that was really, really interesting, especially because I grew up, my parents, and family only drank, big Cabernet Sauvignons, and so drinking Pinot, as we all know very well, it's such a different experience, and it's more complex in some ways, but it really has that tie to the land. It's not often heavily altered by oak, and so you're really tasting what was being grown. So I think that was a pretty cool experience, having my small background of drinking wine around the dinner table with my family to now trying Pinot Noir, this totally different variety, was very, very interesting. And it, again, showed me how special that Oregon is, and how unique it is, and the quality of wine that we can produce here, which was really cool. And working in the tasting room, could you actually repeat that?
For sure.
Yeah.
What did people want to know from you? What excited people about wine? What were the questions they asked?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And honestly, I can't remember. I really can't remember. I just remember having such a great time in that tasting room. I don't think it was anything significant in that people were there for, of course, there was great wine, but there was a beautiful view. There's always good music playing. I don't remember too many wine-specific questions. And I will say, I think, and part of that is, even at that point, this was, as much as I enjoyed it, it was just a part-time job. I wasn't going to have a future. I wasn't taking in some of those details that maybe, like I said before, I wish that I would have, because, funny how things work out. I ended up being more than just a part-time job in college. Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Tell me about after graduating. What was your next step?
Yeah, so after graduating, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, although I did know I was not ready to go and sit at a desk and start my career. So I moved to Spain right after college, after the summer after college, to teach English to grade schoolers, to kind of just, again, I wanted to do some more traveling and not fully ready to settle down yet. So I did that, which was a really, really great experience. fun to see that culture. It was a little bit of a culture shock. I was very naive when I went to Norway. Everybody spoke English, no problem. When I was at Linfield in high school, I took French. So basically no Spanish knowledge. Well, when I got to Spain and took the bus out to this, not small, but probably similar size to McMinnville farming community where I was supposed to be teaching English, quickly learned that, no one really spoke much English at all. So that was a huge culture shock. So trying to find an apartment in a place where you don't speak the native language was extremely difficult. But once finally got settled, was living with 2 Spanish college students. It was great. Really awesome experience. Really fun teaching English. And then learning Spanish, which again was a skill that I had learned at the time, not thinking that I would use in the future, and now I use it almost every day, which is really cool. And so from there, I was coming back, needed to get a job. I wasn't ready to settle down and start my career, but I knew I needed to. And kind of when I came back, I connected with an old friend from high school, actually, whose family has a big farm, and they were looking for someone as they were growing to do their HR, safety, compliance, and they were just looking for someone who spoke Spanish and had a little bit of a background in business. So I said, perfect. And I think that I had no idea what to expect. I was very excited about it because I knew that I wanted to use my business degree, but I wanted to work with a product that was interesting. I didn't want to go sell software, insurance, that sort of thing. Nothing wrong with those industries, but I just knew I wouldn't be interested in that. And so this large farm, Forest Hills Farms, it's who I'm with now. They grow a bunch of over almost 200 acres of blueberries, 150 acres of black raspberries, and then they had at that time just under 100 acres of wine grapes. And so, again, on the wine side of things, I was like, oh, that's cool. They have grapes. I worked in a tasting room. I know a little something. That's cool. But it was mainly, doing a lot of safety and compliance for their other crops. Their food safety, they ship a lot of their crops internationally. So there's a bit of compliance that goes on with that. And then the human resources. We have about 30 year-round employees. So that was a big factor. So got started with them, and it was really interesting. It was intimidating, not knowing anything about agriculture. I have no background in agriculture, so that was stressful, but also really exciting. Every day you were learning new things, and you were working with this new cool product. In that case, it was the blueberries. I've never eaten so many blueberries in my life. And it was awesome, really, really fun. But the HR, safety and compliance side of things, really, really important role, not the most exciting role. And again, it was, stressful role. HR's not easy, but hugely important, but I wasn't feeling super fulfilled by it. And so I was kind of, figuring out what I want to do. I really love the farm work. I love the industry, but like I said, wasn't being fulfilled by this, the current role. So I did a few things to kind of explore. I went and got my WSET Level 2 certification. I was kind of like, I really enjoyed wine. I used to know what I was tasting, thinking about it. I've been out of it for so long, I'll go take this class. And so that was really fun and kind of reminded me of wine and why I enjoyed wine so much. And at that time, they planted their initial vineyards for King Estate. King Estate was looking for people who were good farmers to plant sort of larger plantings to fulfill their growing brand. And so at that time, they were buying all of our grapes basically, and they were very, very involved in the management of them, just because we were blueberry farmers. We don't. It's a very, very similar concept, but very different in a lot of ways. So they would approve the spray programs. They would suggest when we water, tell us when to leaf pull, and then also do all the crop estimations and stuff. And I remember it was either the first or second year that I was at the farm, and kind of feeling like, I'm working in agriculture, but I'm stuck in this office, and I feel like I'm part of it, but not really part of it, and a little bit of frustration. I'll never forget that Ray Nuclo from King State came in and was like, guys, we don't have time to do crop estimates. Can I please just show you guys how to do this, and you start doing them and just let us know what's going on. And, I had no idea what a crop estimate was, why you do it, who cares, why would you, no idea, but it was just like, sure, let's go, please. And went out there, and that was really the first time when I was like, whoa, this is really cool. This is so exciting. That first year, and maybe even into this, I guess it would have been the second year, I spent way too much time out doing these crop estimates, because it was the one thing that I kind of feel like, okay, I can own this. I know what to do. It's really interesting. The data behind it is interesting. The sciences behind it is interesting. And up to that point, I didn't even really know. They say to learn something, you got to ask questions, but I knew so little. I didn't even know what questions to ask. And so learning that one little sort of job really opened my eyes of, what questions to ask. I started spending more time in the vineyards and seeing things going on with the canopy, and what does that mean? And, and started doing research on my own. And at that point, we started expanding who we would sell our grapes to, started planting more grapes, and saw sort of this opportunity that at some point we're going to need someone on the farm with a little more focus on the vineyard side of things. And so talked to the owners of our company a little bit about it. I knew about Chemeketa's vineyard management and winemaking program, and kind of pitched it to them of, hey, can I go take classes in the evening and potentially, work a little bit more on the vineyard side of things, a little bit less on the HR and compliance. And they were very supportive about it, which was really nice. And so sent me down to Chemeketa, doing 1 or 2 classes a semester in the evenings. And went through that program, which I was very, very happy with. Had some great professors. My general viticulture first class I ever took, professor was Russell Moss. He's now on the East Coast, but he every time I would leave class, I would just leave driving home back to Beaverton from Salem, thinking how cool this is and how exciting this is, and just how big of a world it is, from the soil to the plant to the bottle of wine, and just getting so much excitement. And so, that was really kind of what really got it all started in wine. And so then from there, I also did the vineyard management, but then also the winemaking program, just because I did have an interest in that, and that had proved to be really, really valuable for many ways, and also made me realize that I don't have any interest on being on the winemaking side of things. I never got that interest, but I was very, very happy with and impressed with Chemeketa's program, and I thought it was they did a great job, and feel very fortunate that I was able to go through it and be supported like that. And so, yeah.
What year did you start working at the farm?
Started working at the farm in 2017. Yeah, April 2017. And that first year was tough. Not having any idea of what's going on. And I started in April, and our harvest starts in June with blueberries. And so we harvest blueberries and black raspberries June through September, and then we also grow a lot of grass seed, wheat, clover, that whole rotation. So we're harvesting that all summer, and then right as those things slow down is when grape harvest starts. So it was really, it was hard just not knowing anything, not knowing where to help, not knowing even what questions to ask in order to help, because it's just a totally different world agriculture was for me. So but it quickly became something that I was like, this is going to take some time to figure out, and it's just be patient and go along for the ride. And it's turned out to be really exciting, and I really enjoy it.
You mentioned the kind of the first entry to the vineyard, crop estimates, not understanding why, not really understanding how, but excited about it. What was exciting about it as you did it? What drew you in? What made you want to keep going?
Yeah, I think up to that point, kind of watching what was going on at the farm, and this is very naive of me, is it didn't seem scientific. It didn't seem like there was a reason as to why we were doing the things we were doing, which I will say was wholly untrue. But as someone who had no experience in agriculture, it's just like, well, why are you putting water on the blueberries at this time? Why are you harvesting them like this? Why are you doing this? And I think going out and doing those crop estimates was the first time that I saw, like, whoa, no, there is a process in this that is backed by science, that delivers like hard data for you to see, to get the product where you want it, from a quality standpoint and then quantity standpoint, and like to see there's like, oh wait, there's ways to answer the why as to, you know, why we're doing the things we're doing. And to me, that was really interesting and cool. And then I think, you know, there is, you know, people talk a lot about this, that like, you know, growing grapes isn't as romantic as people think it is and that sort of thing. But, you know, those first summers out in the vines, like walking up and down rows, to me, there was some romanticism behind it, and it was really awesome and it was really beautiful, especially coming from, you know, the office working on compliance reports all day to then, you know, spend my afternoon taking crop estimates. Was like, oh, this is awesome. This is beautiful. And like this, we are going to, we're doing a job that's going to affect the overall quality of our product. And that was awesome. Yeah. But then it was a lot less awesome. I'll never forget that first year when I had the crop estimates I had taken were way off. And then you get that angry call from the winemaker who isn't very happy, and then that's like, yeah, this isn't so romantic. This maybe isn't as fun as I thought it was, but it's all part of the learning process.
You mentioned how happy you were at the time at Chemeketa. Tell me a little bit about some of the classes you took, some of the people you worked with there, and what kind of the biggest takeaways were for you from that program.
Yeah, so I think, like I mentioned, the general viticulture class, that was definitely a highlight because it was that first exposure, and like I said, it felt like every class, like light bulbs were going off, like every single class, and just learning so much every single class with it. And I had, like I said, a professor who was really passionate about the work, which helped. That was a great one. I really loved how hands-on it was. So they have their vineyard there, and a lot of they would do a series of fall vineyard practices, winter vineyard practices, spring vineyard practices, summer vineyard practices, and half those class periods, you would start out in the vineyard and you would be you'd be pruning, you'd be pulling leaves, you'd be doing these vineyard practices, which was again really great for me to see, oh, this is kind of why we're doing this at our own vineyard and farm. And given that we weren't, we were blueberry farmers before we were grape farmers, there was a lot of opportunity for improvement on our own farm, which I didn't realize until I started taking those classes and talking to the professors and most of the other people in the classes were in very similar situations as myself, working for a farm. Their farm sent them down to, you know, learn more, and Chemeketa is great for that, but it was so fun. You'd be sitting around pruning with somebody who works for a winery in the Iola Hills, somebody who works for a winery in the Dundee Hills, and you're pruning and all chatting of like, oh, how do you guys do it at your farm? Why do you do it like that? And all kind of learning together, as hands-on as you can get, was really cool. And then just the ability to learn something in class and then the next day be on the farm and go drive and look at our different vineyards and say, are we doing it this way? How could we improve this? Ooh, we definitely did that. And then next week taking it back to class, asking the professor, hey, we do it like this. Why is the way you taught us better or worse, or, you know, this and that? And so to have that hands-on experience while working was really great. I'll also never forget one thing that I think describes the Chemeketa program really well, and why I think it was such a good program. Like, one of our final assignments was we had to, in front of the class, you know, hook up a tractor implement and then unhook it. And like, you had to be able to do that. And like, that's so valuable. Not something you learn in a classroom. And I truly left that program feeling like if you went through this program from start to finish, like, you have the skills you need to be a vineyard manager. And that's really cool. I also remember one of my favorite classes was with Alan Holstein taught. They were in between professors, so he came back to teach. And I think it must have been summer vineyard practices. And specifically, we went up to his own vineyard, and he was showing us all the different ways of like gopher mitigation. Big problem in vineyards. Something difficult to solve. And yeah, I don't know if Chemeketa administration knows Alan Holstein's gopher mitigation practices because they were great and they were effective. But we were sticking road flares down gopher holes and covering them up and all different types of things. So it was really cool to see this, this sort of Oregon wine industry legend who, paved the way for a lot of our vineyard management, seeing how he does it up at his own farm and like it works for him. And so that was really cool and really fun to see. But yeah, and like I said, the winemaking classes were really, really interesting. I really enjoyed them. I think that it was really beneficial to do that too, even though I really had no interest in doing winemaking, but I was like, I should probably learn it. It's really allowed me to communicate with wineries a lot better, knowing their needs and when they tell, knowing exactly how what we do in the vineyard affects what they're doing in the winery, and also the importance of that. Early on, it always seemed like, because we only sell fruit at our farm, we don't make any wine, but it was always kind of like, they're the client, they're always just asking for too much, everything needs to be perfect. But it's like, no, when you learn what their needs are, it's like what they're asking is important, and we should really be doing that. And so having that winemaking education was helpful to see that and sort of be able to talk the talk with them. But yeah, I think I much prefer the grape growing side as opposed to the winemaking side. Yeah.
Being outside rather than being a janitor.
Exactly. Yeah, you said it, not me. Yes, but you're exactly right. Yeah.
So you mentioned that while you were in class and while you were kind of taking these practices back into the into the vineyard with you, the transition was sort of happening where your company was sort of taking over more of its own vineyard management. So tell me about that for you, taking on more responsibility and starting to make some of the decisions outside of sort of King Estate's purview.
Yeah, it was incredibly stressful in that, and it was great. It was very exciting, but also, and I really appreciate this, but my bosses were very much like, Nick, you run with it. They put a lot of trust in me, which I'm so grateful for, and I think that in some ways it made me a better vineyard manager, but it was definitely stressful, like especially when you start to realize the impact that your product is having on some of these wineries' futures, and what their finished product is going to look like, and things like crop estimates of how important it is for you to be accurate on that. And so yeah, but it was also very exciting because it was giving me the opportunity for the first time to see the product in the vineyard, like all the way through to the finished product. We were working with more wineries. We were working with some wineries that instead of just doing big field blends with our vineyards and our neighbors' vineyards and everything, to wineries that really wanted to focus on our vineyards as either single vineyards or smaller blends. And so that was really cool and exciting. That's obviously the goal. It would be frustrating sometimes to really manage these vineyards all year and like treat them like my babies, and then they go into a huge tank and blend it up, and not really able to see the finished product there. So yeah, it was definitely exciting. And challenging as well. We have a great staff at our farm. They've been, like most of the guys have been with us forever, very knowledgeable, but for so long we've always pruned the same way, pruned every single vineyard exactly the same, sprayed every single vineyard exactly the same, managed every single vineyard of all, at that time 100 acres, pretty much identical. And that's just because that's the knowledge we had. That's how we do our blueberries, and it works well. And it did work well with the grapes, but as I learned more, I kind of saw the intricacies, and hey, this vineyard that has this aspect or this elevation, we should really consider doing X, Y, and Z as well, and trying to talk to the crew about making changes after they've done the same thing the same way for 10 years, and they have me coming in, trying to tell them what to do, was a little bit challenging as well, and understandably so. But they took to it and put some trust in me, and it seems to have worked out well.
100 acres, a lot of vineyard. Yeah. Tell me about getting to know your space and how it has changed and grown.
Yeah, so we so after that first summer of learning crop estimates, like I mentioned, that's what kind of opened my eyes to, just what to look for in vineyards. And so I remember that following summer, I took it upon myself, again, not knowing much, to, on a four-wheeler, drive every single row on the farm between, June and August, which, 100 acres going to take a while. And I was doing things like counting missing vines or counting vines that only had one cane, which, looking back on a vineyard our size, it's important to know that stuff, but it's not a good use of time. But it did give me a chance to get to know every vineyard, get to know the vigorous spots, get to know the spots that have more crop and why, and get to know plants that looked off. What does that mean? Start doing some Googling, start taking pictures. Oh, that might be a disease. We should probably think about getting that out. So, looking back on it, like I said, not a good use of time, but at one point I would win every single row on that 100 acres. And it was really fun, and I learned a lot through it. But quickly, and I've gotten a little bit better at it every year, is being able to know what's going on in the vineyard in an efficient way. So once you get to know each vineyard little by little every year, you are able to manage it a lot more efficiently. Now I know the problem spots. So if I'm going to go look at, if I'm going out there to scout for, vine vigor, I know the first spot to go to in every vineyard, and I kind of know the canary in the coal mines in each vineyard. So when this vineyard, when bud break's happening here, or when bud break's at 50% here, I know it's 20% over here, just getting nuts. So it's a lot of spending time in the field, walking around at all those important times of the year, bud break, bloom, that sort of thing. And then also the one that I think is really important and kind of fun this time of year is getting out there during pruning a little bit on each block, because then you can look at the canes, and that's going to tell you a big story of what happened last year, what we can expect the next year. And it's easy to get out. It might be raining, but it's a slower time of year. You can spend a couple hours each day really looking at that stuff, which is helpful. And so, I felt like we've got I have a pretty good handle on what's happening out in the vineyards. Every year is a little bit different, but I know how to scout efficiently, and that's been nice. But then now I've kind of gone back to square one, in that we just had and I'm very excited about this, but we just did a big planting, about 30 acres of all the vineyard in total, about 30 acres of all basically non-Pinot Noir varieties. And so that has been really, really exciting to start working with some of these different varieties, and a huge challenge. I do feel like in some ways I'm back to square one. This year, again, I've been talking about crop estimates quite a bit. I feel pretty confident in my crop estimates, and especially in Pinot Noir. I know what sites do what, and can do well and communicate that well with the wineries. This year I struggled with some of these new varieties. It was the first time in a while I got some upset winemakers about, you said we were getting this much and it's actually this much, or vice versa. And I said, well, I guess they don't act exactly like Pinot Noir does. So it's a good learning experience, and also really exciting to be working with.
Obviously, a lot of issues in the vineyard, right, from pests and disease and things like that. Tell me about educating yourself on that, and about, I guess, keeping track of your space. Yeah.
So I think that's actually one of my favorite parts of working in the vineyard. It's kind of funny, you want to have the perfect vineyard, you with no issues, but when an issue does come up, that's what kind of excites me, especially trying to diagnose that. Learn about this in School, it's really interesting to look at a vine or look at a section of vines and start working backwards, doing that, going through that checklist in your head of like, all right, let's look at the surroundings. What's around us that could be causing this? What's the pattern that you're seeing in this vineyard? And just working backwards to figure out what this pest is. Is this a disease? Is it in the soil? Early on, this was when I just first started at Chemeketa, we had vines in this one vineyard site that were just starting to fail. Every year it'd get weaker and weaker and weaker, and then would be dead, wouldn't have fruit on them. And it's like, what disease could be causing this? There was no symptoms, and I was just, perplexed. I was like, what could this be? I had no idea. Brought it back to my professor at the time at Chemeketa. I can't remember who it was, but they said, well, have you tried digging up the vines and seeing? Well, but then I was like, well, if I dig them up, then it's game over. But sure enough, dig them up, and the root balls were totally J-rooted, and it was really funny because when you talk about patterns of these pests or disease, it was one row where all these vines were just slowly dying, one row, and so sure enough, it was the roots were J-rooted, choking themselves out basically, and it was one row because whoever was planting that row wasn't doing a good enough job of spreading the roots out when you plant them. And it was very clearly like a human error of just going in there. The roots grow together and those plants were dying out. So I would have never thought to, I would, it's crazy for me to say this now, but at that time I would have never thought to dig up the vine to see what's wrong with it. But then I will say, thinking about how to efficiently do pest management and scouting, like I said, it's really learning our vineyards and learning the hot spots and kind of going to those first is something that has helped a lot. Haven't done it quite as much, but we've done a little bit of it, and we'll definitely be doing more, is using drones. It's a great way to scout your vineyards and see your hot spots. Not as much for pests and disease, but for things like vigor and water holding capacity and things like that.
Talking about building relationships with winemakers, with wineries, how do you sell your grapes, and what are you looking for in clients?
Yeah, so like I said, we started off, we did a couple big plantings for King Estate, and for the first almost 10 years of the vineyards on our farm, we're just all going to King Estate. And then little by little, we've kind of expanded. But even then, up until 2019, 2020, we were selling to, basically 3 to 4 large wineries. And now we're up to 14 different wineries that we work with. Selling the grapes and marketing the grapes is definitely something that I've had to learn very quickly over the years, and that for so long it was sort of a self-sufficient process. We planted these grapes for a winery, they were going to take them, we just made sure they were high quality and good products. And then since then, I've tried to get to know the industry as well as I can. I mean, in the industry as a whole, industry as its needs, and then specifically looking at, wineries that I enjoy, and just trying to think of, do the products that we have fit their needs? And if not, what can we do to fit their needs? When we, back in 2019, when nobody wanted to buy Pinot Gris anymore. There's too much Pinot Gris on the market. Finding a winery that was interested in a different white varietal and kind of looking at literally going to their websites, looking at their different SKUs and seeing how can I pitch something that is going to fit into their SKU or, add to their SKU. What wines of theirs are sold out? What varietal is that? And is there a way that we can help that winery with that varietal? And I'm not going to lie, listening to some of these oral history interviews and hearing what winemakers are saying that what they need, what's working well for them, and then approaching them with a solution, essentially. So back to the Pinot Gris thing. So we, approached a winemaker and talked, hey, if we graft this over for you, was it something you're interested in? Oh yeah, for sure. That's super exciting. And Yeah, that's kind of the main way, or I should say the most exciting and interesting way we sell grapes. Otherwise, a lot of it's word of mouth of working with some of these larger wineries, trying to fill their needs, that sort of thing. We're really lucky to have on our farm all mixes of vineyards. We have more production style vineyards, we have higher quality vineyards, we have all different varieties. We have sites that we farm fully conventional, live standards, and now we started to do farm up to organic standards. So we have a really nice palette of things to work from, which I think has been a really great success of our farm, is diversifying in that. So we do have a little bit of something for everybody, which has made selling grapes easier than it could have been. Yeah, but it's definitely a changing landscape out there, right, for sure. Not what it used to be.
Definitely come back and talk about that. I'm also happy to hear another use for our interviews that hasn't been talked about before. I didn't realize we were being used to sell grapes.
No, it truly is.
Tell me about the new vineyard. You mentioned 30 new acres, non-Pinot Noir. What did you plant? How did you choose it? What is your sort of goal, ambition for the new space?
Yeah, so this project came about in must have been, I think, around 2020, 2021, we were talking about it. We had started to see the slowing of the Pinot Noir wasn't selling like it used to. Nothing crazy. We were still getting it all sold, but prices weren't as high. Wineries were a little more, cutting back contracts and that sort of thing. And we also we're really trying to figure out, how do we get our farm's name on the map, on bottles? How do we do that? And given that the soil types we have around our farm aren't going to compare to the Jory soil in the Dundee Hills. It's just given our location. We're at the very, very north end of the Chehalem Mountains. The border of the Chehalem Mountains AVA runs through some of our vineyards. We have some lower elevation sites. So how do we differentiate ourselves from some of our competition? How do we offer something that's different? And so that was a huge factor. We also wanted to, there has been a changing climate that we've noticed. Let's do something experimental. Let's see what we can put in there that adapts to the climates that we're seeing over the last couple of years. So those were some of the factors. And then also we started working with some smaller wineries that were more apt to experimentation or working with varieties outside of Pinot Noir. So those were kind of all the factors as to why we decided to take this leap. And yeah, so we planted Aligote, Malone, Sauvignon Blanc, Gamay, and Cabernet Franc, and then we added some Chardonnay in there as well, and it was awesome. And another reason we kind of went this route is previously we had grafted some Pinot Gris over to Aligote, and we were just very impressed with the Aligote. We'd also been seeing the trends that a lot more people had seemed to be making and drinking white wines. It was like they were having a little bit of a comeback, which was nice. And we also saw the nice thing about white wines is they typically yield a little bit higher, especially in our soils. They yield higher, which means we can bring the price down, which makes it a lot more approachable to wineries, because then they have lower costs going in. So that's what really started it. And the other big thing is we wanted to, I really personally wanted to start doing some more organic farming, and saw this as a great opportunity of, we're starting fresh, let's farm this all organically as well. And that appeals a lot to a lot of these same wineries who are willing to experiment, excited about new things. They have a really large intention on how it's farmed. So it's all kind of come together to be this awesome site that we're calling the Blooming Vineyard. And then lastly, we part of it that we'll hopefully have out this first year is part of the profits off of that site are going to go back to we haven't decided on the nonprofit yet, but a nonprofit that benefits like our immediate community and farm workers and that sort of thing. So actually, and then to bring it back to Linfield, one of my favorite classes, or one that was the most memorable to me, was a corporate social responsibility class. And it was just pounded in my brain of the triple bottom line: people, planet, profit. And so going through this, the planting of this vineyard and the design of this vineyard, that has been stuck in my mind is, let's make a vineyard that benefits people, our direct community, our workers, the planet. Let's farm using more organic practices, no herbicide. And then obviously we're a business, so we do need to make some money on it. So let's make a planting that is going to be economically viable. And so far, it's come together pretty nicely. And it's been, like I said, very fun to work with some new varieties and just learning a lot. And it's been great. Yeah.
So this vineyard is the first, the one that it was planted since you've been there. So tell me about that, kind of the ownership of that for you, and the role you played in the layout, design, the choice of varietals.
Yeah, so we, on the ownership piece, it's been really, really fun and really exciting. Actually, I feel really quite a bit of pride about it because it did feel like a very big risk when we did it. Pitching like, hey, we're going to kind of plant a vineyard that's, there's a few small vineyards that have done this model of different varietals and different rootstocks and that sort of thing, but I think we should do it, and having that confidence to go in and really, that, like the Cabernet Franc, we planted it in 2021, and then 2023, it wasn't a super warm year, at least compared to what we had been used to the last 5 years, and I was like, shoot, we're not, we're gonna have this Cabernet Franc, it's never gonna get ripe, we're never gonna be able to sell it, so like, there was a lot of doubt in mind, and then we also used the help of a viticulturist when making some of the decisions on the rootstock and things like that, just because I didn't have the full confidence in myself to do that, I think. So that was really helpful. But as soon as, at the second year, I really started marketing that fruit, and as soon as I started pitching it to wineries and talking to wineries about it and seeing their excitement, it was kind of like a sigh of relief, and that like, okay, this kind of crazy idea is gonna work out, like which has been really nice, and yeah, really exciting to farm it organically as well. That was something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I think is really beneficial for soil health. And then in comparison to the other crops we grow, farming grapes organically is pretty easy. Like I said, it's not, I don't want to say it's easy, but compared to blueberries or caneberries, it's really doable, especially to do it at scale. So seeing that come to fruition as well was something that was really exciting to me. Yeah.
So tell me about CPRD. You're on the board of it. Tell me what it is. Tell me about your work.
Oh, yeah. So CPRD is the Chehalem Park and Rec District in Newburgh. I moved to Newburgh in 2020. My partner and I were living in Beaverton. It was 2020. We were ready to settle down and buy a house. We loved McMinnville. We were actually thinking of moving back out to McMinnville, but it was a little too far from Portland, where a lot of our friends were, where she works, a little farther from my job, and we drove through Newburgh a lot when we were heading back to college in McMinnville, and so we said, hey, let's give Newburgh a try, and so moved there in 2020, and immediately just fell in love with the small community, met a surprising amount of people who moved to Newburgh for the same reason we did, wanted to get out of the Portland area for a number of reasons, affordability, be farther out in the country, that sort of thing, and just fell in love with the community and wanted to get more involved. And the opportunity came up to that there were some open board seats, and I had been involved sort of on the outskirts of the Park and Rec District through pickleball. I love pickleball, play a lot of pickleball, and kind of saw an opportunity to get even more so involved in the community and run for the board seat there. So on the board of directors, we kind of set policy for the district, and the Park and Rec District, again, definitely recognizing the fact that I'm biased, but we have an amazing Park and Rec District for the size of our community. Just the amount of different amenities that we provide is really cool and really exciting to be a part of, but it is a lot to manage and figure out, okay, how do you manage all this? And so to be a part of that and give back to the community in that way has been really, really fun and exciting. And I've always been someone who wants to be busy, needs to be busy, and busy in all kinds of different things. And so that kind of was a nice thing to add to my plate that left me feeling fulfilled. And yeah, it's been really enjoyable. I've only been on the board for about 6 months now, but really enjoyed it so far.
What else keeps you busy?
So mentioned pickleball, play a lot of pickleball. And then love biking, love being outdoors, hunting, fishing. And then recently in the last year, one thing that kept me really busy, and it relates well to this interview, is me and one of my friends in Newburgh were a little bit frustrated that we were living in Newburgh, kind of not right in the middle of wine country, but in wine country, a lot of people passing through, and there was really no fun wine-related events in Newburgh. You know, there was some stuff at the Allison, which was really, really cool, but not necessarily accessible to the Newburgh community. And so me and my friend, neither of us having done a large-scale event before, decided to throw a wine festival this fall in Newburgh, which turned out to be a great success, a lot of fun, but yeah, that has seemed to keep me very busy for the last 8 or so months. But yeah, it was over him and I, it would have been 2024 on Beaujolais Nouveau Day. Both of our wives were out of town, and we were sitting around drinking some Beaujolais Nouveau and talking about this issue of Newburgh not having any fun events. And he, being the marketer that he is, said, Beaujolais Nouveau, Newburgh, why don't we have a Nouveau Fest? So we kind of put together a festival based loosely on the tradition of Beaujolais Nouveau Day, and reached out to a bunch of wineries, seeing if they would be willing to make a Nouveau style wine to pour at this event. And yeah, so we did it the third week of November on Friday, not on the usual Thursday, with the idea to kind of have people come down to Newburgh, kick off a weekend in wine country. And yeah, it turned out to be a really awesome success. Had a local bluegrass band, local chef doing coq au vin and fondue. Yeah, it was a good time. It was a really, really good time. So.
Is it going to continue?
I believe so. Yeah, I think so. It was pretty stressful. Like I said, we'd never done an event to this scale before, and everyone always said, "Hey, ticket sales are going to happen the last week. Like, don't get stressed out." But we were 2 weeks away, and there was not many ticket sales. I'll tell you, we were both kind of like, well, like, I guess we're going to have to work a few extra hours at our day jobs, and like whatever, at least we tried. But that last week, we had quite a few sales, and then including the night of, we basically sold out. We ran out of glassware, which was like a good problem to have. And so with that, I think we were both like, yeah, enough of a success that we should try this again. So yeah, so that's that. But that had been keeping me very busy for a while. Yeah.
You talked earlier about the industry changes you've already felt, especially on the grower seller side. So tell me about where the industry stands right now for you, end of 2025. What does Oregon wine look like right now? What is hopefully coming next? What are you looking ahead to?
Yeah. So I think the industry seems to be more so than I've ever been in a tough spot. This was the first year that since I've been there that we didn't sell all of our grapes. We left about, so we're up to around 150 acres now. We had about 15 acres that went unsold, and a lot of acres that we sold heavily discounted, which I think is a sign of the times, which is unfortunate. But I think it's a great opportunity now more than ever to focus on quality, focus on what we do well and do it really well. For a while there, 2020, 2021, the market was great. Grapes were flying, wine was flying off shelves, and so I do think a lot of people planted grapes, cut corners in their farming. I can't speak on the winemaking side, but yeah, it was not for everybody, but maybe there was they didn't feel the quality needed to be there. So at least personally, I'm taking it as an opportunity to really make sure that the grapes that we have in the ground are going to be the best possible quality out there, because there's a lot of competition, and that's the goal to improve. And yeah, the industry's in a very, very interesting place. We'll see. And similarly, I think if we want wine consumption to continue, if we want wine consumption to increase, you're going to have to put out quality wines, and the consumer doesn't have the patience for wine that isn't quality. So that's kind of how I see it right now, as an opportunity to be better, to do better. And but we'll see. There's a lot of unknowns. We're talking this year about how we're going to, are we going to grow fruit on all of our vines? There's been a lot of industry meetings about how do you best manage vines in a way without growing fruit on them in order to cut costs and save costs. It's been talked about taking vines out. That's a realistic thing that I think a lot of vineyards should be considering. There's no question that there seems to be an oversaturation. But I also think it's a little too soon to make too many rash decisions about what we're going to do. But yeah, we'll see. It's an interesting place to be, but I do still have hope. The great thing about Oregon is we have a quality product. The wines coming out of the state are amazing, and I think as long as we can show that to the rest of the world, that we'll continue to have that quality product and continue to be able to sell wine. Yeah.
What about what's coming up for you? What have you not done that you want to do? What's on your horizon?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I think that this year the event that we threw was a big one. I really wanted to, again, never really had an interest on being the winemaking side, but being sort of on the more retail sales side of the wine was something I was excited about, and through an event like that was something I was really excited about. So I think we are going to take the momentum from that event and make it even bigger and better next year, and maybe there's other opportunities for things like that. I think on the grape growing side, I'm really excited about this new vineyard, our blooming vineyard, and really excited. This year was our first commercial harvest off of it, and so I think there's a lot of opportunity to learn and to really, like I said, start from scratch on learning on how to, especially on our farm specifically, grow these different varietals to the best quality that they can be. I mean, I went in almost a little overconfident growing these Cabernet Franc specifically, and this Aligote of, how hard can it be? It's Igro Pinot, but it's so different, and so I do feel like I'm a little bit at square one of learning what works and what doesn't, and I'm really excited to learn and hopefully bring out some really quality wines from the vineyard side. Outside of that. I think those are the two main things that I'm looking forward to at this point. Yeah.
What's your greatest accomplishment so far?
Greatest accomplishment so far. I think the thing that I'm most proud of is converting a good amount of our acreage from conventionally farmed to either herbicide-free or organic. I think that soil health is so important, and that's the quickest, easiest step to ensuring good soil health. And like I said, lucky enough that the grapes do fairly well with practices like that, and we grow our grapes on very vigorous soil, so some competition from a cover crop or weeds aren't an issue. But yeah, I'm really proud to be able to say that we've removed the use of herbicides in a good amount of our acreage and are using more organic practices, and I hope that ourselves and other wineries can continue to do that, because it's a great opportunity and it's very achievable. Mm-hmm.
Last question for you. Tell me about biggest takeaway from your time at Linfield.
Biggest takeaway, I think it's just to say yes to all opportunities and to get involved. And those two things kind of go hand in hand. The size of Linfield made it very possible to try things out, try new things, say yes to things, join different groups, and that's only going to open doors. That's only going to help you learn more. That's only make you more curious about what's going on. I think, at Linfield, there was many things that I said yes to because, I had the time and let's do it. Like one of them that I often think about that I would have never expected to do was alternative spring break my senior year. Everybody had spring break plans senior year, let's do something fun. I didn't have anything on the agenda. Well, Linfield was going to Alaska to literally dig holes for outhouses in the woods. And it was one of my best experiences at Linfield. Has made me fall in love with the state of Alaska. And it's so cool. And also just seeing general volunteerism and how far that can go, and it's just really cool, and it's just really, I think, important to be involved in your community, and know that you can make a difference in your community. It's just going to take a little bit of work, and Linfield really showed me that. Yeah.
Excellent. All the questions I have for you today. Anything I didn't ask that I should have? Anything we didn't cover that you wanted to cover?
I don't think so. I think that's about it for now. Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to share with us today. Welcome back to the library.
Yes.
Nice to be able to come back and revisit.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you taking the time to share your story with us. Go ahead and let you off the hook.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, guys.